All right, fantastic. Now, getting back to the whole rereading of the series stuff, including Black Clover, obviously, like I've mentioned, I'll just do a quick TLDR. Doing a video series, going through each series for Fairy Tail and Black Clover, rereading them, and trying to give my as close to my initial kind of like responses, so I can think back when I first read it, as well as reading these chapters again, knowing what's to come in the future, knowing where we're at now, and how I think these chapters really reflect towards. Well, I think that'll be really interesting just in general, going through a series again, and then it's like when you get like parts set up, and it's like, oh yeah, this is the part that was foreshadowed for this, or what this that happens later. Stuff like that, always fun. But the first portion I'm doing, like the Fairy Tail one, I did chapters 2 and 3, which is like Lucy joining the guild, and then their first kind of little adventure they did with the Vulcan going to get Mako, and I talked about it was a very character-driven portion, and I think that's the same thing with Black Clover, because this is going to be chapters 2 through 5, which is Asta going to like the tryouts to be get a squad, getting accepted by the Black Bulls, meeting the Black Bulls, having their the initiation with Magna, and then the first portion of Noelle. Obviously, this panel that I used, because for the other ones I was planning on doing like a slideshow of picking my favorite for each chapter, but since this is such a short one that's only going to be a couple chapters, I figured I'd do my favorite. And I feel like a lot of people would do like one favorite is like when Asta, stuff with Asta and Magna, or maybe when he shows up the Black Bulls for the first time, or when something with Yami. This out of those 2 through 5, this is my favorite one for sure. I think it's very simplistic. It's very it's a very happy scene, and it's a very upbeat and nice panel that shows like the first step towards like a relationship between two characters, and especially when you know that they're gonna hook up by the end of the series. It's a nice little opener to see where this started. But anyway, going towards this, the first two, like not first two chapters, first chapter obviously did a video on that, go check it out. It's gonna be much longer than this one, but then you have like the 2 chapters where Asta is trying out for the Magic Knight squads. There's still some interesting stuff, just like looking back on of like what could be, considering got offers for every single one of the night squads, and I'm wondering, like, out of all these brigades, the weirdest ones probably would be if he joined the Blue Roses, considering they're all girls. Like, I don't think we've seen one dude in the Blue Roses. I'd have to go back and double check, but I don't think there's any dudes. And so like bringing in what would Yuno's job have even been? Like this. I would like to have like a what if chapter just to see how that would have went. And then, I mean, because Asta, they would have just turned him into like a chore dude. It would have been like how he was at the start of the Black Bulls, but probably worse because Soul is a sexist, hateful woman. Well, maybe not now. At the time, she was definitely very rude when it came to guys. But also, Black Bulls, would have been very strange in the Black Bulls. But anyway, outside of that, you have like just Asta trying really hard when it comes to like all the tests. Obviously, he has no magic, so he can't do them. And then Seki, who I'm glad Seki wasn't just some jerk that was at the this portion at the start and then written off and never see him again. I like that he's a recurring character, and I'm hoping that eventually he'll become more of like a useful and competent kind of guy, because for the most part he is really just he's a silly dude. I get that he's a bit of a comedic character, but I am hoping he gets at least one portion later where he gets maybe his own fight, even if it's only one chapter, and because he's still a Magic Knight, he's still like actually a very capable wizard overall. Like you still have to be better than a lot of people to become a Magic Knight in the Black Clover world, but I don't know, something like that. Even just one portion at some point where he gets to have a serious fight, and but he's still a Magic Knight, so I want to see him be capable and do stuff for his kingdom. But obviously, very awesome in the first couple chapters of just like when they get to the combat portion, he's like, this guy's not gonna be able to do anything. He's got like no magic, he can't do shit. And then Austin, brings out the Demon Slayer sword and just blitzes the hell out of Seki and just cuts right through his spell and just takes him out. And Actually, one thing I always forget when it comes to like the first few chapters is when Asta first meets Yami, he just thinks he's like the same age, but just is a really big dude. Like, he doesn't even know that he's a captain, or just been like, oh, he must work here. It was just like, oh, this is a really big kid. I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, it's anime and manga and shit. So some like 6 foot jacked 15-year-old with a mustache and smoking is fully possible, but just him joining into the Black Bulls, I think is really cool. I really like that when it comes to the Black Bulls, Yami's thing is people he finds interesting that he brings in, not just like, oh yeah, I invite you in because you're a spirit. He likes them because they interest him. They're very weird, and that's why the Black Bulls are the way they are. Like the Fairy Tale Guild is the way that it is because the easiest way to describe somebody is they're kind of like an orphanage in a lot of ways. Like how many stray kids they kind of bring in and give a home to, and just the way that once they bring that in, they can get kind of rowdy. They brawl a lot, and I think it's more of like initially it's more like an orphanage, and then obviously they become more of like a close family. And then with the Black Bulls, it's because they're all weird, because that's what Yami likes, is he invites all these people that are very strange that he finds interesting, and then they become a family later on. And that's, again, one of the things I think both series do really well. I think Tabata and Mishima are excellent when it comes to actually having like character relations that feel genuine and feel like they're actually really close, and instead of it just being like, yeah, these characters are on the same team, occasionally they interact and they're friends. I mean, that's something that you can easily do. But I think that having them, when they interact, you can tell that there's an actual like bond between them, and you can look back at multiple, like, I mean, look at like Magda and Luck, and like how they interact with each other and how their stories have really kind of moved on as like their rivalry and their friendship, and it feels very nice, it feels very genuine, and it feels very real when it comes to the characters. And then you see that a lot, like it's the same thing of like I mentioned the Fairy Tale one, like the first few chapters, like getting initiated into Black Bulls, meeting Noelle and stuff, isn't like the memorable portions. It's like seeing what the Black Bulls are like as individuals. It's like seeing Noelle when she's introduced, seeing Asta go and help her, and how that all kind of plays out. And I think that is a way more memorable portion of these chapters than just like, oh yeah, he tries out for the Black Bulls, he beats Seki, he gets in, meets how crazy they are, and here's Noelle, she runs out, she can't control her magic very well, Yami throws Asta and saves her. I mean, like, you can remember it, but like, it's like, oh yeah, that was cool, that was fun. But when it comes to the chapters, I think the bigger portions are thinking about very specific character moments, like for example, those early chapters, like the portion of like joining the squads. I think the two biggest things that I remember is obviously Yami inviting Austin because he found him interesting. I thought that was a very fun way to have him join the main character crew, and then telling Seki that he doesn't deserve to fight Asta. It's because has more respect for Asta than Asta has in himself, which I think is always a really interesting character trait. Especially when you see like people try and compare him to Sasuke, and you saw like how Sasuke was to Naruto early on, but then and then it's like you have like Bakugo and Deku. Like eventually, like those guys became kind of friends, but they still kind of had beef in certain ways. Not real beef, but just kind of like character friction at times. But when it came to those, it was more of like it was a little bit more aggressive, where it's like and Asta are more like two brothers, that occasionally argue and they just mess with each other. And I do really like that portion of that chapter, because like early on, like especially Asta, like people, you can tell him to do chores, they can kind of like treat him like some rookie and do stuff, and he doesn't mind. Asta is a very humble kid. I mean, he absolutely doesn't mind. He came from nothing, so like having anything makes him very happy. And here's who clearly has a lot of respect for Asta and his personality and just everything about him as a rival. I really like that about the early couple chapters. And then when it comes to me like joining the Black Bulls, like even though like you had cool stuff like Magna's initiation, Asta getting his cloak, meeting the Black Bulls, the biggest thing to me of that is the stuff with Noelle and Asta helping her, and just them having their first real interactions. Like this panel right here, I think this is a really good panel. I really enjoy just the characters interacting with each other, finding out about them, but in a way that is intertwined with the main character. I talked about in the fairy tale one that one of the biggest things in that early chapter, or those early chapters, isn't necessarily Lucy joining the guild, finding out about the guild, and going on this like short adventure to beat this Vulcan. You have stuff like early on, Romeo like wondering what happened to his father, not knowing if he's alive or dead, and similar, like it was close in date to when, because it was on like that quest ended, like that little quest ended on July 4th, which was 3 days before July 7th, which was the day that Ignil disappeared. So there's like the idea of maybe Natsu was thinking about the day that his dad disappeared, and now he sees this little kid who doesn't know where his dad is, and it probably reminded him of himself. Got emotional about it, and then went and did this. It's explains why he was pissed off. He like pretty much just damaged the quest board, put like a hole through it to go get this done. And when you have something like that for a character, I think it does really well. And especially like when it comes to Black Clover, like in these first ones, like Asta, even though Noelle couldn't control her magic and it was just kind of like a chaotic thing for her, it was dangerous. Asta, who had no magic, just saw it as amazing because he was just so impressed. Somebody who just wishes he had cool magic like growing up, and then he sees somebody, even if they can't control it, just how insane their magic is. And I imagine that was just a really nice feeling, that even though you couldn't, even though you have trouble like controlling it, and for years you had people like insulting you over like your capabilities of your magic and whatnot, you had somebody who not only helped you but genuinely like was really impressed with what you did. And I think that was just a very good way to tie both of the characters, like I said, with Natsu and like his stuff with his dad, as well as Asta and his longtime want for magic, and how they relate them to the story and how character driven they are when it comes to the interactions with other characters, based off of what we know about the characters then, and especially when you go back and look at them now. But anyway, other than that, like I said, good chapters, really good early stuff. I'm looking forward to doing, when we get to the actual arcs, and we talk about like, because these ones I think were more important character stuff, because they're very early, kind of short like adventures and short situations. But when we get the actual like plot stuff going on, and like big battles and whatnot, those are going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to get to like more character discussions. But anyway, other than that though, comment below, thumbs up the video from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.